What's up, everybody? How y'all doing today? We got another amazing guest coming today. Y'all been seeing I've been trying to do more of these talks and trying to just create powerful, positive conversations. And today, y'all, we have a very, very, very special guest. I can't wait to introduce you all to the founder and CEO of Changes by Choice. Coming soon. Stay tuned. We are here for another conversation about mindfulness and mental health. And I have a very special guest today, a very, very special guest. And I would like to introduce you all to my accountant, Miss Nicole. Tell them who you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Barnes, and as Quentin said, yes, I am his accountant. I am also the CEO and founder of Changes by Choice,
Yes.
and also the CEO for Barnes & Associates, an accounting and bookkeeping firm. But mainly, that's who I am, and so I will turn it over to you, Quentin.
So I say all that to say, for the introduction, I think it's very important for professionals, young people, older people, whoever, to have a person that you can talk to about finances and someone that you can go to for financial advice. A safe space and someone who you can rely on and someone who you can truly trust that has your best interest at all times. I think that in regard to mental health and how mental health plays a role in how people deal with finances and think about their finances, I think it's a very important thing for us to kind of think a little more about like how we are and how we interact with money when we're not well mentally. And you have to first be aware that you're not mentally well to accept the fact that money may turn into a very weird and uncomfortable topic for the wrong reasons. And I wanted to talk with Miss Nicole about, what are some things that, or some situations that we need to be mindful of, or how does mental health affect people's financial situation? Um, I would love for you to kind of chime in on that and tell me what your thoughts are around that and just let people know some things that they should look for.
Well, first I'm gonna say, whenever you say when we talk about mental health and finances, it's more of a decision. It's how you grew up. What did you see when you were growing up? And actually, that's what impacts the decisions you make as an adult, whenever you're in life. So when we talk about mental health, there's a whole lot of different factors. Depending on, were you exposed to the finances of the house? Were you always on a budget? Were you told no? Were you told yes? So everybody has different situations. But as an adult, once you become an adult, unfortunately, sometimes people tend to blame the parents or whoever it was. But you have to be accountable once you become an adult because you're the one that's actually making the money. So I always tell people, it's just to have a respect for it. It's so I don't. I mean, there is a mental health component to
Sure,
it.
sure.
It's how, but when we say mental health, we're not saying it in a negative connotation.
Absolutely.
We're saying it is, how do I feel about it? My mental psyche. So sometimes, and it's not. It's just the correction to everyone when it comes to that stigma. I think there's a stigma that
For
gets
sure,
put
without
with
a
the
doubt.
word
Without a
mental
doubt.
health. But again, if we go back to what did you learn or what did you see growing up?
Sure.
So it also starts there, and you have to get to the root of it.
I agree.
And that actually impacts, how do I budget? And I can say from my own personal experience, and yes, I am an accountant, but I did grow up, and my mother we were always on a budget.
Yeah.
So when I became an adult, where I was on my own, I will say that I hated the word budget. So I learned from my own pitfalls in life of, I said, oh, I'm never going to be on a budget. That's all I heard. Budget, 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 budget. We can't do this because we're on a budget. And so when I grew up, it was like, well, now I have some money. So I would just spend, and grow. When I was young, it did put me I was in a financial bind of, there was a point in time that, yeah, I almost was evicted because I was impulse buying. I was impulse spending. So that's where you make the tie between the mental health because it was impulse. I respected what my mother said, but yet I didn't want to live by those rules because once I was growing, I felt like, I'm gonna do my own thing,
Yeah.
not realizing that I have to be accountable for the money that I actually have if I want to go ahead and be successful. So through life and just learning and growing and going to school and just all those, everything, everything as a whole,
Sure.
then, I said, okay, looked at my bank account one day and I was like, okay, I think I need to make some other decisions. And I think that's kind of what more, even though I've been in finance for a long time,
Mhm.
it kind of made me more aware and have more respect for it, more respect for
Yes.
where did I see myself going in the future and how was I going to get there. So, when we talk to people as a whole, it is about, everybody starting out from different, you know, different sectors of their life.
Sure.
Some, I'm not gonna hate to say this, but have a silver spoon in their mouth. But then also those individuals also sometimes spend frivolously.
Sure.
And then they find themselves, in a financial situation, and they may or may not have a parent or family that can go ahead and bail them out. And then there's some that, some that didn't grow up that way, don't have the silver spoon.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you see that they're actually a little more successful. But again, it's about the thought process and how do you respect money and what it is that I'm going to do and where are my goals. So,
Yeah.
I always tell people the first thing is to really, what are your goals? And don't, a lot of times people don't like to talk about money. They get embarrassed. They get embarrassed of, well, I can't afford to do this, or they look at other people.
Comparisons.
Exactly. It's the comparison. Well, this person's doing this and this and this and this. Well, I want to be able to do it too. And then they find themselves living that way, but not really planning because they're living for someone else, not themselves.
Yes.
So
I think that's a very common thing in the world of like the Instagram age, and especially the young people. And I think like you said, having the respect for money is something that I don't think that a lot of people were taught.
right.
And I think that I feel like on Instagram we always see like everybody posts stuff and it's like you grew up like that way too. Like it's like all black people grew up the same way, and we all had the same type of covers. We all had the same comforters, like the same little dining sets, the same TV, like all these different things. And it's also the same mindset,
Right.
and it's a fear-based mindset around money and around trying to keep as much as we can, and we don't invest, or we're not taught to, build credit or taught to do all of these other things. And I remember being in my 30s, and I was kind of upset. And I was like, you know what? Here I am in my 30s, and I don't know about credit. And I'm like, nobody ever, and I do remember certain conversations that we did have about credit, and my dad would always say, you don't ever spend other people's money. You don't spend anything you don't have. You don't, he just broke it down to me in a way, and I know my dad meant well. He didn't mean, but he taught me the same way he was taught. And I had to make a conscious choice to be able to step out on my own faith and to figure out how to use credit and build credit and make credit cards make sense. And I was fortunate enough to do it. And I went back and had a conversation with my dad about it and tried to teach him, the importance of credit cards and how to use a credit card, because we're not taught certain things. And I think that's why I value my relationship with you so much, is because you have taught me so much and have helped me to help other people, and also bring you clients. Like, cause this stuff that I can't do, but like I'm here to look out for the cookout. I'm trying to make sure everybody eat. So y'all need an accountant. You need somebody who can really teach you some stuff. You come with that money, but yeah, I just understand. You can't. This is a relationship money can't buy, and it's two people I think that everyone should really have in their life that you should be able to talk to and tell them the truth, because this is like, with your finances, like she just explained, people get weird about it. It's just like going to the doctor. People get weird about it. People don't tell the truth at the doctor. People don't tell the truth to their lawyers and tell the truth. Like, these are people that got to get you out of the situation that you put yourself in. So you got to tell them the truth.
Well, I will say, it's funny that you say that, because I do tell people whenever I am working with them that I am like your doctor or your attorney. You have to be. I can't help you if you don't help me. There's no judgment, but how can I work in your best on your behalf, or help guide you if you want to shield and hide? And those are the individuals that I usually tend to. I will say that they get about 3 warnings, and after the 3 warnings, it's like, okay, I don't turn them away, but I will turn them to someone else, because apparently, not saying you don't want to listen, and not saying that I know everything, because I will tell anybody, no, I don't know everything. I know a lot, but what I don't know, I am a researcher, and I will figure out how to research, and I will figure it out for you. We can figure it out together. I get questions. There's certain questions I get, and I study every year. I do my CPEs, excuse me. But however, the laws are always changing, and it's not. But we will bring it back to it is about, and as you touched on a little bit, what your dad taught you. I know what my mother taught me. As I say, budget, 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 budget. But then it was, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Okay,
Literally.
I'm on a budget. That means that, oh, I can't get these new tennis shoes. It's not that, oh, we're planning for the future. We're structuring for the future. We're making a structure. So it's actually having those conversations, and it's not just it's not a black, white, brown issue. It's
Sure.
issues all over. Because a lot of people don't like to have the conversation. They're embarrassed, or you have parents, especially older parents, that say, well, do as I say. Do as I say, not what I do. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand. What
Yeah.
does that really mean?
Yeah.
So it's being able to have those type of conversations and being open and being vulnerable,
Sure.
And so it is nice to hear that you were able to talk with your father, later, and say, okay, well, this is what I learned. And, as you have grown into an adult, and just being able to say, okay, this is what I learned. Hey, Dad, did you think about it this way? Or did you think about it that way? Well, this is what I'm doing. And I do it even with my own mother. When we talked about estate planning, wills and those sorts of things.
All uncomfortable stuff.
Yeah, there are uncomfortable conversations, but you have to have them if you want to go ahead and prosper, and if you want to leave something for generations behind you.
Sure.
So those are just. I'm not saying they're my pet peeves. It's just something I think is really very important.
It is.
It's just the education, and not to be embarrassed, and not to there's not to compare yourself to other people. If you write down your plan and know exactly where you want to go, and that's kind of difficult to do because the plan is ever changing.
For sure.
But overall, whether you are looking at a social media or a TikTok, the person with the big house and nice car, okay, well, I want that too. How do I actually get there?
And create a plan.
Yeah, and create the plan, and then stick with the plan. But the biggest thing I do tell people is, whenever you are making money, you got to pay yourself first. And I know you hear that when people say, well, pay yourself first. Okay, well, how am I going to pay myself when I have the rent and I got and I got all these other things I got to do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, no, really, you have to pay yourself. Whether you say, okay, I'm going to pay myself, make your bill, your plan, your budget, and, I use the word now, didn't like it when I was growing up, but you have your budget. But once you have your budget, you have X amount of dollars. This is your budget, but you already know that you're going to eat. You already know that you're going to go ahead and go out.
Sure.
So make sure that you pay yourself that money first, so that when you are going out and you are doing things, this is the amount that I have to work with.
Yeah.
And that way you're not touching those other monies. If you know that you want to start investing, okay, that's part of the pay yourself first, because I'm going to take this money out and I'm going to put it in this avenue. And I want to make it grow over here. And then you leave it alone, but that comes from the pay your first money, but you already know what your bills are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel so stressful,
I agree.
Because then people feel like, oh my gosh, well, how am I going to invest? How am I going to save? How am I going to do this? The money is there, whether it's $5, you don't have to say, well, I don't have $100 or I don't have $1,000 a month. No, you have five, because if you can go down and I don't know, to a fast food place, I won't name any, I don't eat fast food, but go to a fast food place and I'm going to eat this. That's that $5, that's that money right there.
For
that
sure.
You can, but you used it not really having a plan of the budget, so that's where it becomes uneven. And that's what boils again back to, as you said, the mental health piece.
For sure.
The relationship that you have with it. How do I understand money?
Yeah.
What do I want it to do for me?
Yeah. Well, I don't think that people look at money as a vehicle or a means of what it can do for them. I think people look at money as a sense of empowerment. Because I think about my grandma. My grandma would all the time act like she had no money, and my grandmother had so much money in her bank account, and the family would just be like, "What?" So it's a scarce mentality that I think a lot of people have, also going back to like that fear-based thing of like, well, I got to keep as much as I can keep and figure out how to make it work some way. But it's like, you know, I know that other people, I'm not to be rude or nothing, but I know white people teach their families about investing in stocks and teach their families about investing into different types of portfolios and different things that can help their money grow. Like black people are the only people that I know who go to work every day and expect to get rich from, working a 9 to 5. Yeah, so it's like that's why I've been very intentional about, learning and understanding and doing my own research about things that can help me to invest money and like use money for the future and budgeting, because I budget too, but like I hated that word. I hated anytime a technical difficulty. Y'all know what's going on. Big Jack's in the building. He ain't playing.
Come here, Jax.
We can stop it real quick just to stop down for a second.